Good afternoon, everyone. It is David Schlotthauer here with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Monday, July 21st, 2025. Now, in this tropical weather update, there are two areas to watch out there in the main development region of the Atlantic. The first one that we are monitoring still in today's video is Invest 94L, which has a 10% chance of tropical development as it threatens the Lesser Antilles over the next couple of days. Brings a lot of rainfall, strong winds, and some flood concerns. And then we have to keep an eye on another area of interest that is coming off of Africa today. This also could have a chance of tropical development once it gets more in the central portion of the main development region in the next few days. Now, if you haven't been here before and you do like these detailed tropical weather outlook and discussions on a daily basis, and you find these very helpful, informative, and detailed, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell notification icon, hit the like button, and share this video with their family and friends on social media. Here's a look at the latest GOES 19 True Color Visible Satellite Imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. There will be a link in the description below this video. And as we can see here, the tropics have woken up a little bit here, as we can see with Invest 94L, that is dubbed from the National Hurricane Center. They're running hurricane models on this, and this is going to be threatening the Lesser Antilles over the next couple of days, like Dominica, Guadeloupe, as well as St. Kitts and Nevis, including for Barbados and some of the islands to the north. Then we have another area of disturbed weather that is coming off of Africa here. We do have to keep an eye on this as there is increasing model support from the ensembles from both the GEFS and the European ensemble, showing that this has a chance of tropical development over the next 5 to 8 days as this moves generally off towards the west at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then, of course, if there is time in today's video, we will be talking about the Northern Gulf as well as the southeastern United States for the possibility of tropical development. This is very far out in time, and I'm not anticipating too much impacts for the time being based on latest deterministic model support, as well as our ensembles really not showing a very bullish scenario developing right now at this time. But it's something to think about going forward here into early August. Now, taking a look at your latest Saharan dust analysis here from the University of Wisconsin, there will be a link in the description below this video. And as we take a clear look at this, there is certainly a lot of warm, dry, stable Saharan dust that is coming off of Africa. This is quite a lot of concentration, by the way, where we have this red and pink. You could even see the stratocumulus clouds to the north, indicating that this part of the Atlantic is quite stable. And with our tropical waves that are straddling this boundary of dry air to the north, some of this dry, dusty air is going to try to work its way in these tropical waves, and that is why there will be struggles along the way with these tropical waves as they move generally off towards the west-northwest. We can clearly see a good example of that with 94L, how it's struggling this morning. This is kind of an up and down, fragile situation with that system, versus our second system here looks healthy now, but I would not be surprised as this heads generally further west, some dry dusty air could get in the way of this from time to time. Now, when we look below the dry dusty Saharan air layer from what we looked at earlier, here's a look at the latest 850 millibar vorticity plot, also from the University of Wisconsin. And what we have here is where we have that spin, where we have that invest. And this is 94L here, as you can clearly see. Here's another little week of spin. This is not going to do much at all. And then what you don't see here is another area of vorticity that is coming off of Africa, which is outside of this image. And so therefore, this definitely looks quite organized by all means. It looks like it could be a very low-end tropical depression, but again, because of the lackluster of convective organization, some drier air that is infiltrating on the system from the northwestern side, that is why this system is struggling down here. But I want to make it clear, it does not mean your impacts go away for the Lesser Antilles over the next couple of days. And that's because there will be impacts, lots of rain, wind, some thunderstorms, some flood concerns as well. as this transits over these islands, especially just to the north and probably even over Barbados, as well as St. Lucia, Dominique, as well, or Dominica, I should say, Guadeloupe as well. Now, what about that deep layer vertical wind shear here analysis from the University of Wisconsin as of 18Z based on GOES derived satellite data? We can see here on Invest 94L, which is located right here. It is on the northern edge of this belt of light vertical wind shear here, as you can see in green. Deep layer vertical wind shear on this system, by the way, right now is 15 knots out of the southwesterly direction. And it is getting awfully close to where all of this unfavorable wind environment actually is. But as this wave continues to move off in this general direction, there's going to be this belt of strong westerly flow aloft, along to go with trade winds underneath, helping to equate to strong deep layer vertical wind shear. And what we have here right now is 20 knots. This is likely to increase to about 30 to 35 knots in the coming days as Invest 94L barrels in to this stronger belt of southwesterly flow. Now the question really remains, will Invest 94L develop into a tropical depression or even a tropical storm on approach to the Lesser Antilles over the next few days? With that being said, here's a look at the GFS model, the 850 millibar 3-plot system. Color shading indicates where we have spin in the atmosphere, as we can clearly see down here on 94L. And then, of course, our wind barbs tell us which way the wind is blowing from and how strong it is at 850 millibars or 5,000 feet above the surface. And then our ISO lines here basically tell us where there's a ridge of high pressure or where there's an area of disturbed weather with lower heights, like we can see up here, lower pressure here, higher pressure up here. So now that you know about this, let's take a look at what the forecast tells us. We're going to actually zoom in here on the islands. Let's actually get a little closer. And so we're looking at the Gulf and the Caribbean. And there is our wave that is located back here on this map. So putting this into motion, we can see that the wave really does not consolidate any more than it pretty much is right now. So that is why chances of this developing are actually not very high at all, despite there is quite a bit of convection kind of surrounding the system. It's percolating about, it's not really organizing. And so therefore, by Wednesday morning, this is 60 hours out, this is going to be approaching Guadeloupe, Dominica, as well as St. Lucia Island for that morning commute. So keep it in mind, there will be a lot of rain, a lot of wind going on with this, enhanced trade winds to the north of the system. We will also see some enhanced swells as well, so some rough surf to go along with that. And the orographic favored locations on the eastern slope of these islands, where the wind goes up and over, we are likely to see also orographic enhancement of rain as well. So don't be surprised if you're on the eastern slope, you might see up to 6 inches of rain, but on the leeward side, you might only see about an inch or 2 of rainfall, significantly lesser, just only a few miles difference. So as we move this forward now in throughout rest of the day on Wednesday this week for the 23rd and the 24th, that wave really fall apart. And that's pretty much normal because given the fact that the Caribbean is notorious for graveyard-like systems, it's never always favorable here. You have strong belt of trade winds that accelerate through the Caribbean Strait with upper level winds from the westerly direction, so that enhances your deep layer vertical wind shear. The background environment here is generally drier overall, and so any wave that approaches the Caribbean here is usually going to fall apart, especially in this central portion from Venezuela all the way into Hispaniola as well as Jamaica. And so right now, as what it looks here on the GFS, maybe some enhanced rainfall for Jamaica, but nothing too surprising at the moment. And this takes us all the way out to 5 days. So through the end of this work week, you can't even really see the disturbance at all on this map. Although you can see more of a disturbance here in the northern Gulf, which might surprise you all here with the chances of more enhanced rainfall, more flood concerns here for Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. but otherwise here looking nice and quiet. So now looking at the European model deterministic forecast. Again, my job here on this channel and in these videos is to show you as thoroughly as we can with the different global models that we have at hand here. And what we have here is our second model up to par, and this is the Euro. So putting this into motion here, of course, zoom in into the Caribbean. There is our wave right there approaching Dominica as well as St. Lucia, as well as Guadeloupe in the Lesser Antilles. And this again would be Wednesday early morning, bringing rain, wind, and thunder, also some high surf. And then you can see a secondary wave here, which we'll get into just a second. That will be approaching the islands as we go into early next week in about 7 days. But we can see here an area of disturbed weather does straddle the northern Gulf Coast there of the United States. So now back to that wave that I wanted to show you all here is it's coming off of Africa right about here very soon. You can see a lot of convergence here in about or by tomorrow early morning. So you can see a lot of red here indicating a lot of convergence is in place. And what that's going to mean is maybe some tropical development. So as we go into basically day 2 here, this is from last night's model run. So this is kind of delayed by a teeny bit, but it gives us a pretty good idea. So this is for Wednesday late Wednesday late afternoon into early Thursday morning. There is that wave envelope, but watch what happens here to what the Euro shows. It tries to wrap it up a little bit more out to day 5. That's going to be an area that we really need to watch very closely. It doesn't mean this is going to develop into a tropical storm. I'm not saying that right now, but there is definitely some people starting to talk about this wave along to go with ensembles that's starting to pick this up a little bit more strongly. So that is going to be the next wave behind 94L that we will have to watch quite closely for the potential for tropical development, and it might find itself in a bit of a better environment here as there's more moisture to work with this. Still that drier air to the north, but when we look at the deep layer vertical wind shear on this system, you can see vertical wind shear overall, even as this approaches the Eastern Caribbean, might actually end up being very light. We have very little vertical wind shear and an anticyclone on top of this system. That is winds going outward like this. See this? This is what we like to see when it comes to tropical cyclone genesis. So this is going to be that wave that really will catch a lot of attention. I'm sure ensembles will probably start picking on this up a little bit more because, boy, look at that upper level wind environment. Very, very light and conducive. No vertical wind shear whatsoever. Although, again, there is some dry air on the system, but as long as you don't have a lot of deep layer vertical wind shear, this should thrive quite nicely. So that is something that we are going to need to watch pretty dang closely. I want to make sure I did get that correctly. So there is our wave right in here. Actually, there's easterly flow. So I'm sorry. I'm actually a little bit ahead of myself. Yeah, so our wave pocket... Oh no, our wave is right here underneath the anticyclone. Yeah, so this would pretty much be in a fairly good environment, perhaps, for tropical development. So that's going to be the wave. Really quickly, I wanted to show you the GFS, how it analyzes this, and you can see definitely a demarcation there. Again, background environment, very conducive. It looks like not much deep layer vertical wind shear on this as we look at that. Yeah, see, vertical wind shear on that is rather light, under generally 20 knots or so. Now, our last model that I wanted to show you here is a Canadian model. And as we put this into motion, there is our system. Let's go to here. And you can see right there, there is the footprint of 94L moving over St. Lucia, Dominica, as well as Guadeloupe, bringing some of those winds and some precipitation as well. And then that dies away. And then we have to watch our second wave pocket here in about 7 days. Okay, so there's 2 waves out there that we're watching out there in the MDR. Okay, and that will be part of today's thumbnail. And then, of course, down the line, I don't see anything behind this that rings a bell other than those two waves. Rainfall totals with Invest 94L with that additional wave pocket moving over the same area. This is going to all add up at the end of the day to 7-day rainfall forecast does show that there is going to be a lot of it. Anywhere between about 2.5 to even 4 inches of rainfall. Over here in Dominica, that is 4 to 5 inches of rainfall on the eastern side shore of the island. Look at these other islands getting quite a bit of rainfall, anywhere between 2.5 to even 3 to even 4 inches in some areas. So even so, this is a tropical wave and it might not end up becoming a tropical depression or storm. Nonetheless, this will bring a lot of impacts, lots of rain, wind, and some flooding as well. Now, because this is deemed an Invest 94L from the National Hurricane Center, they could actually run models on it outside of global model deterministic. And we can see most of the Spegetti plots here are aimed squarely for perhaps in St. Lucia as well as Dominica. And just to the south there, some of these islands just to the north of Barbados, where you have a tight clustering of Spegetti plots, indicating there is fairly high confidence here in this small window that the tropical wave will likely move just to the south of Guadeloupe. But this does not mean that this will 100% move. This could get steered a little bit to the north and aim just to the south or on top of Guadeloupe in the next 60 or so hours. Now, looking at the Invest here on the GEFS ensemble forecast, pretty well consistent here, but you can see some members are not completely out of the woods in Guadeloupe, bringing maybe some tropical depression impacts there as well as towards the south. So there is still some wiggle room here in the next 48 to 72 hours for this Invest to impact, and it could still organize just a little bit more. Now, the question really remains, how strong will 94L get before it reaches the island? So in about 3 days is where I think the window shuts down for this system, because it's going to be moving into a high sheared environment, more drier air to entrain into the system. And so right now, some of the models do indicate, and this is the 12Z output, by the way, showing tropical storm intensity in the lower end of things. But because of how anemic the system is, there's a lot of dry air coming in out of the north with this system, as along to go with deep layer vertical wind shear. I am definitely below most of the guidance here in terms of intensity, and I am right down here. And I'm only indicating that this is going to become a tropical depression at the very most, with winds of about 35 miles per hour within the next 2 to 3 days, as the wave envelope and its pocket move generally west-northwestward at about 15 to almost 20 miles per hour. This is how it looks from the European ensemble forecast. Take note, not much confidence off the Gulf Coast there of the United States versus what we have down here. Here is 94L with its ensemble tracks bending to the left slightly into the Lesser Antilles, as well as even for portions there of Guadeloupe. And then our second wave pocket here, this would probably be deemed Invest 95L if these model trends continue and the NHC starts highlighting an area. I would not be surprised if they highlight an area late tonight or tomorrow on this area of disturbed weather. Once it comes off of Africa, it is still too far out for them to basically have a highlighted area, but the ensembles are definitely picking this up, especially from the Euro, indicating lots of green and even a couple of yellow tracks, indicating mid to high end tropical storm intensity here is certainly a possibility. In other words, 95L has a better chance of developing than 94 does. Even the GEFS ensemble is also on board with this, with the Euro, with how strong this next wave can get coming off of Africa. Most of the ensemble models here, well, not all of them, but a few of them are indicating that this could become a tropical storm as well. So yeah, this is definitely needs to be watched. So if you're on the Lesser Antilles here, definitely be watching this in the next week or two. We are also keeping an eye on how models respond to the southern Gulf Coast here of the United States. There's not a lot of tracks indicating strong intensities there. and just more than likely similar to 93L as it kind of went boomerang and it kind of went off like that, in other words. Because of all of the above that I discussed in this video, the NHC only gives us a 10% chance of tropical development, and I'm not surprised by that at all given how anemic the structure is. There's drier air coming out of the north. We got some deep layer vertical wind shear already turning in out of the southwesterly direction, and that shear is only going to slowly increase as the wave approaches the Lesser Antilles over the next few days. We again will have to wait and see what the NHC does with the wave coming off of Africa. I would not be surprised in the next day or two if that gets highlighted in the NHC's radar, and once that does, we will also be talking about that in future videos. Now, with that being said, please take the system a bit seriously if you are on the Lesser Antilles here of Guadeloupe, Dominica, St. Lucia, Barbados, as well as St. Kitts and Nevis down here because of Invest 94L. Regardless of tropical development with this tropical wave here, there will be some heavy rainfall, some flood concerns, some mudslides, debris flows, as well on some of the islands, including for the risk of some strong winds and some rip currents in oceanic conditions. So therefore, even so this does not develop, this will bring impacts to the islands. And then, of course, we will need to be watching our eyes closely on an area of interest coming off of Africa, as that has a slightly higher chance of tropical development once it gets into the central main development region in the next 2 to 4 days. But anyways, if you haven't been here before and you did find this tropical weather outlook and discussion very helpful, detailed, and informative, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, folks. Hit the bell notification icon because we are very close to 50,000 subscribers. We are less than 3,000 subs away from that. So thank you all for showing your awesome support here on the YouTube channel by subscribing, hitting the bell icon. But also, if you could hit that like button as well to show your awesome support too, letting me know if you like today's video, that would be great. Also, leave a comment in the section below this video. What are your thoughts about Invest 94L right now? And what are your thoughts about the area of interest coming off of Africa? Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion on these two tropical waves down here in the MDR.